And then I brought 2 other kits that I carry. One is like an ankle kit, and I'll explain to you why I like it and why I don't like it. There's the pros and cons there, and I'm hoping you can
I got plenty
some
for
light
that.
on that.
I've tried those.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I also have like, this would be a kit that I usually like would have. This basically is what I have in my vehicle.
I was going to say that looks like a vehicle kit.
So I have every vehicle. I have 3 vehicles. I have 3 vehicles, and I have a kit like this in every vehicle. So I want to kind of go, maybe have you critique kind of my setup.
Well, just to start with your backpack, like if you want to hold that up again, like the fact that you have the medical is on top of your bag, and you've got this zipper for the people listening. It's just like a half moon zipper on top of his backpack, but it's on the very, very top of his backpack, which for starters, that's the best. Your medical equipment, hands down, first thing, it has to be readily available. Right? You don't want it in the bottom of your bag where you're digging it out, or you don't want to move it around where you don't know where it's at. You want to keep it in the same, you want to have a SOP, right? A standard operating procedure of where it is, what's in it, and that it's easily accessible and quickly accessible. So kudos to you, like right off the top, for having it on the top of your bag, because that's killer right there. Like, not killer, that's actually the opposite. It's saving people, but you know what I mean? But the fact that you have that stuff up there, and I, you know, from here, I can see that you said you had the tourniquet. I can see right here, it's a CAT T, which is, I mean, there's a lot of good tourniquets out there, but that was the first one approved by the TCCC committee. It's what I used in the Army. It's all I carry. You know, you got shears. You can't treat what you can't see. So cutting those clothes off, getting them what I call trauma naked, getting those clothes off. There's wounds, bullets go in, they do weird stuff and come out weird places. So you see a gunshot wound to the chest, it might have exited an armpit or something. So the shears, not a lot of people carry shears, believe it or not, you know? And so I think that's awesome. And then the Israeli is one of my favorite. I actually brought an old expired one here to, if we wanted to open it or whatever. But the things I like about those is the half moon in them. So those are killer because it provides, sorry, I'm making a lot of noise in the mic here because I'm opening up this packaging. And a lot of times, to be honest with you, in my med kits, I will take this out of here. Okay. So, because if you look, it's still wrapped.
You got another wrapper.
You see how hard that, I mean, unless you rip it down the side,
but
you're a little bigger than wet, so you could probably,
you got blood on your hands, you're sweaty.
Yeah.
You got to go a second time.
So this is still sealed. So I'll usually just break it down just to that, you know what I mean? And then it's got an easy tear. Tears right open, but I'll open this up. But the thing I like about these, and there's nothing wrong with trauma dressings, I still use those, but you got the pad here. So I'll show you in there. But this half moon is on the Israeli is what's really cool, because as you start to wrap, you can come through and then bring it back over on itself. And it's hard to do and it's not on somebody, but essentially it comes back over the wound. And then as you wrap over it, it applies direct pressure,
you get
right?
Some real good purchase on there.
Because your best friend and the number one thing for any bleeding trauma is what? Direct pressure. I was always told, hold pressure 3 to 5 minutes, right? Like that's your number one go-to. And the other thing I like about these Israelis is there's a little tab in here. Have you opened one of these?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what's cool is it holds it together. Cause a lot of times when you open gauze or something, it goes, and it goes across the room. It's in the dirt, like a Jack in the Box. Yeah, it's in the dirt. If you're on a dirt range, like the California range day, it was like moon dust. Do you remember that? It got everywhere.
I remember it. I'm traumatized.
Yeah. So if this was to fall on that moon dust, now I'm stuffing your wound full of dirt, right? But this holds it together and just easily tears as you go, right? So that's kind of cool.
It keeps it organized. I actually, so it's interesting you brought that Israeli gauze, because I've been like in my car kit, I carry 2 different sizes. I have the 6-inch band and the 4-inch just depending. Here's my rationale on that. And going back to the tourniquet in there and keeping it on top. I recently started calling it a rat tourniquet as well, because of 2 reasons. One, my stepdaughter she's very tiny. Very tiny. And these soft tourniquets, they're just not going to work on her. They're just not. I mean, her arms are poor thing. She'll grow into them, but she's tall and lanky. But I also have my dog.
I was gonna say, there you go. You just nailed both of them.
Yeah.
100%. The rat tees, not a big fan of them, but great for kids and great for dogs, because you can get onto the tiniest. I mean, I've wrapped them around wires, wire on wire, and created pressure, right? So you nailed it. I mean, absolutely if you would ask me, what do you think about the rat? I would have been like, great for kids, great for dogs.
Yeah. That's it. I never thought about carrying one until even with the little one, until the dog came along. I was like, I definitely need these. And then I thought, why wasn't I carrying one of these? So going back to the gauze. So I have the gauze, or the Israeli gauze, in my backpack,
which is great, because I like a mix too. Like I carry a couple of these in my trauma bag that goes on with me with call outs, but I also carry like the North American Rescue style, like the ETD, the emergency trauma dressing. Same thing. It just doesn't have this half moon that's hard plastic, but it creates pressure and it adheres to itself. When you're done wrapping, it keeps it wrapped. I carry a bunch of those in there. One of my IFACs has an Israeli. One of my other IFACs has a ETD. They both work great. Both do the same thing, doing direct pressure. The Israelis are just cool because of this half moon.
Okay. So, all right. So that covers sort of the gauze and stuff, kind of positioning, whatever. So this is like my car kit. And this is what, there's one in every vehicle. It's easily accessible. Things I'm thinking when I'm out in the car are not necessarily gunshot wounds. I'm thinking vehicle accidents, severe bleeds. We're out playing, hiking, whatever. We're on the beach. Somebody falls down, gets cut severely by glass or something like that. However, I want to feel like I'm ready for just about anything, given my training experience and my knowledge. So I don't know, man. Open that thing up and tell me what you think.
So again, you got shears right here on the outside, which is great, right? You can't treat what you can't see. Looks like you got some pouches here for tourniquets. I always just like to run. Oh, you got one right up here. So you got the soft tourniquet, which is good. Easy, accessible, right? Like my trauma bags here on the floor, the rubber band.
Yeah, you got like 18 of them on there.
That's what I was taught in the Army. You attach them to the outside rubber bands because when you go to pull one off, the rubber bands break and the tourniquet comes with you, right? So, but again, tourniquets, I see them all the time. They're buried in the bottom of the IFAC, right? Seconds matter if you're putting on a tourniquet. It needs to be on the outside, which is what these pouches are for. But generally, the pouches. From one of these days, I'm going to make my own pouch. I swear.
They're really tight.
They're tight and they're hard to get them in. They're hard to get them out. And
that's
no one uses them. And then, but I mean, you did good. You found a clip, right? Mm-hmm. You found something and you made it work. So you got your soft tourniquet there, which is awesome. I always tell people in any kit, either on your person or in your kit, I try to carry at least 2, right?
There's another one inside.
Awesome. There you go. Oh, see now what's really great here is that your kit needs to be easy to see, right? Like if you're just throwing everything in a fanny pack, that's great. But this kit here, I just opened it up and I can see everything. SWAT tees, not the best tourniquet, but they have their place. I did a wet lab at a TAC medic school I did, and it was on a pig. It was killed humanely. It was going to get killed anyways for PETA, if you're listening. It was all humane, but I did a wet lab and there was just a nub of one of this pig's legs left. I did my damnedest to put on a cat T because it's alive. They're pumping blood through it. So you get squirt the whole 9, right? So I'm cupping my hand on it, squirting all over me. I'm trying to get this cat T on. You know, one thing that got it to stop?
It's the SWAT.
The SWAT T, because it adheres on itself. So it's not my go-to tourniquet.
It's there for that,
but it has a purpose. Situation. And what a lot of people don't realize, it makes an awesome pressure dressing. Yeah. So if you got a big wound, you wrap it and then wrap this guy around it. And now you've got that much more pressure amount of pressure on there.
That's actually why I put it in there. It was less about stopping from, for a regular tourniquet, because there's another one of those in there, and I think there's at least 1 or 2 rat tees.
You got 2 rat tees.
But that was for the pressure piece, because that's what I recognized that's where the real value in my head came from.
But if for some reason you are like, let's say off-roading side-by-sides, I love side-by-sides, right? How many videos have you seen on the internet where somebody like loses
yard sailing?
And if it just happens to be right at the shoulder, the cat team may not do the job. If you got a nub, the SWAT team might be your go-to.
Yeah, gotcha.
Nub. And then it looks like you've got some just rolled bandage. And again, size. This is just the bigger stuff. Like what I have here is just normal, like Curlex, right? Uh-huh. This is what we put in our kits at work, but that's because there's a bag like this big, right? But it's cheap. This is like 60, 70 cents. This is probably pretty close to that price, where when you get something like what's in my kit, which is the compressed from North American, it's great when you're trying to fit in a small place, but it's like $1.20, right?
Yeah.
It's like double the cost. So, hey,
a lot of people don't realize how expensive it is to put together a really good kit.
Oh no. And that's the problem is people go, oh, I want to build a kit. And then I tell them the price and I go, no, I don't.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it could save your life.
Yeah, but they'll spend $1,800 on a fucking handgun.
Or they'll go buy 5 ARs, and it's like, this will save your life. You're more likely to use this in your lifetime numerous times than you are to shoot somebody with your gun.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly the way I look at it. Yeah.
Gloves, which are great. You never know what somebody has. I always tell my boys on the team and my patrol officers, like, I'm not going to waste time putting on gloves for you guys. I'm going in. But Joe Schmo, I don't know, like suspect, like, or a victim, just a normal citizen. I don't know what they have.
Yeah,
so
please.
Gloves are important, but you can do stuff while you're putting on gloves, right? You can glove up one hand and check for a pulse, right? You can glove up one hand and put your hand over a chest wound, right? And seal it, right? You're sealing it. You're doing the same thing as a chest seal with the gloved hand, right? So you can still work as you're putting on gloves. Or I'll put these on as I'm walking up to somebody. I'm talking to them. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm here to, or just calling out obvious injuries. You can start putting these on. I will say for the listeners, they're blue. My department gives out black gloves. And let me tell you a thing about black gloves. They're cool. They're tactical, right? But I try to carry a separate pair of tan or blue gloves on SWAT call outs. They don't always make it in my pocket. Worst case, I have black, but I try to go with tan or blue. And the reason being is black gloves, you can't tell what the fluid is.
Can't see the color.
Can't see the color. So now you're wiping
red blood.
Now you're wiping your hands on the ground trying to look for blood. It's the same thing under low light, right? Like white light, you can see blood, but what is the other source that you're always taught to use? Red light. Yeah. Right. Because it doesn't affect your night vision. Right. But what happens is red on red, you can't tell. So my light is white, red, and blue. Got it. Because blue, you can see blood. But again, kudos for the blue gloves. Cause then when you're raking, right, when you're looking for wounds, you're doing a raking motion with your hands as you go head to toe looking for blood. It's going to show up a lot better on blue gloves. It looks like you got some quick clot. Yeah.
So quick clot.
I'm a new fan of it.
Yes or no?
I'm a new fan of it. Being in the military, I was like hard pressed on the combat gauze, and combat gauze is great. Quick clot though is slightly cheaper. So if you are trying to do it on a budget, it will work. This one here is a little bit smaller. If you look at one of the combat gauzes, if I pull them out, you're going to get a little bit more. We'd have to look at the yardage
surface
here.
Area. Yeah, it's pretty small.
So this is 2 foot. So you're not going to get as much as the combat gauze. I would have to pull one out to look, but I believe it's like 3 or 4 feet. I would have to pull it out to look. But it works, right? It's better than just normal gauze. And for those of you that don't know, like, hey, what's quick clot? What's combat gauze, right? What's the difference? Standard gauze, you can still pack a wound with standard gauze. But the cool thing about quick clot and combat gauze, why it makes it so expensive, is because there's agents in there that help stop the bleeding, right? It helps the bleed stop quicker. And I won't get into the science of it and all that because hundreds of people, hundreds of videos can explain it better than I can because I'm no doctor. But that's where the price difference goes. So again, you wouldn't want to go out there and just wrap a normal wound with your quick clot or your combat gauze. That's what your standard gauze is for. This is for more packing wounds and junctionals. And I got a cool saying, don't let me forget to remember how to use this stuff and when. But quick clot's not for everything, but you got that in there. What else you got back here? All right. Is it okay if I pull everything out?
Yeah, man. Go ahead. Yeah.
Such a pain in the ass.
No, we can get it all back in there.
All right. So yeah, you just got some sponges, some alcohol, sterile pads. Yep. Some basically 4x4s. I carry about 8 to 9 4x4s. They're just good for just putting on baby wounds or starting to hold pressure before you start wrapping. And then it looks like you just got some more bandage there. Yeah. Chest seals are always good. Chest seals is one of those things that, like, especially if you are dealing with gunshot wounds, you'll run out of these real quick. So just keep that in mind. Reason being is because generally what goes in the front comes out the back. Right. So big rule, if you find a wound on the front, get a gloved hand on it, put the seal on there. But as soon as you get a seal on it, you need to check the back. But like I said earlier, bullets do weird things. Like I've seen them go in the chest and come out in the armpit. Right. But the problem is if you get 2 or 3 gunshot wounds in a chest and they're spread out far enough that you can't get one seal,
over more than one hole.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to put 2 seals on the front. Well, there's one in each of these. And now you go to the back and there's 2 holes in the back and they're spread apart. Mm-hmm. So another thing you can do is you've got the full size here for the camera. This is the full size. They also make a compact, which the trainer is a full size, but I have some compact ones somewhere I can show you, but they're just a little smaller. Doesn't cover as much surface area, but you can get a lot more of them in your pack if you're trying to keep your pack small. And then you got the 2 rat tees, which again, they serve a purpose, right? Kids, dogs. For dogs, these are awesome. I've never had to do any work on a dog, but
I was going to ask you about that with your military training.
No, I haven't. I will be the first to tell you, I never went downrange. Okay. So I never went overseas, but even at work with our canines, fortunate enough, I've never had to do any work on a canine.
That's good news. You don't want those guys getting shot.
No. And luckily we got like 24-hour vets close by. So chances of me working on a dog are very few, but they are good. A lot of our canine handlers carry these on their vests, on their exterior carriers. A little bit of duct tape. I love it. High speed tape, right? As they call it in the military. You can fix a lot of stuff with duct tape.
I wouldn't have gotten this far in life without duct tape.
Right. So this is a little thing that people like look over, but you can get these little pre-rolls from like North American Rescue. And I keep mentioning North American Rescue.
That's where half that shit came from.
Just to put it out there before I forget is you can buy anything on Amazon these days. You can buy anything on the internet, but reputable stuff. There are fake tourniquets out there.
We've seen them.
And they snap, they break.
The windlass.
So buy from a reputable source, right? Go to North American Rescue. They're awesome. If you're a cop or first responder, you can set up an account and get a discount. Or just somebody you know. Like, I'm not going to sell you bad stuff, right?
Right.
You know where I'm going to get it from? North American Rescue. So I'll just send you over there. But buy from a reputable place. And then it looks like you got a 4-inch ETD or emergency trauma dressing here and 2 Israelis. I mean, you're pretty good and set, but I will say this. So something to think about, especially because this is a truck kit, right?
Hit me.
So when you're thinking about a truck kit or a boat kit, think of like you said, the stuff outside, the stabbings or the shootings. I would make this kit slightly bigger if you can swing it.
Oh yeah. It's easy to do. It's in the truck.
SAM splints. Broken limbs, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere, right? Resetting a injury, don't recommend it. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you get one try at it. And if you can't do it, leave it. But if you can reset it and stop a bleed or something, and then get it splinted, that could save somebody's life. So maybe just one SAM splint. And if this bag was slightly just taller, you could just slide them in the back. My SAM splints, they're in the back of my pack. Gotcha. So they're actually up against my back. I don't even feel them because they just lay flat. Yep. And some of them you can even fold over. So if this was even a little bigger this way, you could fold it over, put it in here. But a big thing, hypothermia. You can get hypothermia in the middle of the summer, right? Given circumstances, especially if you lay somebody down on a cold surface and you've got them trauma naked, you've now cut all their clothes off. That cold concrete or grass is literally going to suck the heat and the life from somebody. So putting them back on their clothes, survival blanket.
So it's interesting you mentioned that, like, it's not in the kit, but all the consoles and all the vehicles have like 3 or 4 of those little Mylar things in there.
But again, if you go to your lowest form of training and you grab this kit
and you don't have it on you.
Or this is what you take with you. And you just talked to me earlier about a 15-mile bike ride, right? You're at your turnaround.
Right.
If you take this on your bike ride and those
it doesn't do you any good.
The blankets are in the car.
It doesn't do you
go on a hike. So that's just something to think about because they're small too. They're like the size of your Quick Clot, maybe just a little thicker, and they're $1 or $2 on North American Rescue. Right. Put like 2 or 3 of those in there. Just something to think about. But otherwise, yeah, this kit is awesome. I give you kudos. And I can tell that you did it with budget in mind. So you can prove like you don't need to buy the fancy S-rolled stuff. Does it have its purpose? Like the S-rolled gauze from North American Rescue, that's $2. Yes. That is what's in my trauma bag at my feet that I take on every SWAT call out. Why? Because it's efficient and it's quick, but it's expensive. So in the little personal kits that I build for my wife's car and my car, I have the same stuff. It's stuff that hand-me-downs from AMR or, stuff that the hospital says, oh, here, you can have this.
That's kind of how this came together. Because if you get on, you start looking at, okay, so I want a kit in my car. Of course, there are companies out there that make anything you want. Like you want the smallest kit, the budget kit for $20, all the way up to, $500-600,
5,000.
Yeah,
I mean, you can,
depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, you can get a pack like mine that's fully kitted out from North American Rescue. I think it's like $5,600.
Half the shit in there I wouldn't know what the hell to do with, right? But
honestly, a lot of people tell me that, but like, there's some stuff in my bag you'd probably be like, okay, I don't know, but most of it is just an IFAC built out for more people.
Gotcha.
It's
more volume.
Instead of just having the 4-inch ETD, I have the 6, the 8, I have the abdominal, right? Instead of just having one thing of chest seals, I have compact, I have full size, I have multiple, right?
Gotcha.
So all a big kit is there's some specialty tools in there, but it's
like repeats.
You just don't leave anything out and you do multiple quantities of everything. Gotcha. My bag, I tell people all the time, it's just a big IFAC. It's a giant IFAC just meant for 2, 3, 4
for you
bodies.
And for me. And
yeah, exactly.
Everybody in a car.
It's not as scary as it sounds. It's just more stuff.
Gotcha. So get some blankets in there.
I would. If you already have them, just find a place to stuff them. And to be honest with you, you'd be amazed once you start like stuffing stuff. And, oh man, this is giving me anxiety right now because I hate every time I have to dump
don't worry about it.
I know, but every time I have to dump out my IFAC, I'm like, oh, here we go again. I got to pack it in.
It's all good, man. It's all good. We won't empty these, but I do want to talk about these because
those are awesome. Well, what company is that?
So this is Live the Creed.
Live the Creed.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I love it because it's basically like it looks like your old man's wallet.
Yeah.
Right. It's just stuff like
just stuff full of business cards from 1970, the vacuum salesman.
And his rewards cards from Lake Tahoe or whatever from 5 years ago that I'll never use again. But basically, in essence, what it has in here is sort of smaller versions of what you just looked at. There's some gauze in here. There's some gloves in here. There's a chest seal in here. And there is that S-rolled gauze is in here. And the reason that's in here, not in there, exactly, because it's compact. And this is, again, like I love having this because it sits in my bag. And if I'm leaving the bag and I going somewhere
and see here, that compact chest seal I was talking about, that's what this is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the compact, it's the white package, and it's just smaller. And again, it's just to fit more. The only downside is you lose some surface area coverage. But at the end of the day, if you've got some sort of tourniquet, and a lot of times you can carry it on your person in your pocket or whatnot, so it's quick and easy to get to. People ask me all the time, what's the bare minimum? Everyone likes to use the word bare minimum. I hate it, right? But if I had to say what the bare minimum is, some sort of gauze, some sort of combat gauze, and probably chest seals. For most traumas, not medical, but for most traumas, you could probably do something with that. Okay. Especially if we're talking like cuts, knives, gunshot wounds, like the stuff that most of this audience is probably thinking, but even the stuff they're not thinking about, that's like the bare minimalist that I would carry. Now, doing more than that's always great, but this kit has that. I see S-rolled gauze. I even see is these Band-Aids?
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. The front of, I call it the boo-boo kit. I keep the boo-boo kit in the front zipper because I use it more than anything.
Right.
I use that more than anything. There's liquid Band-Aid and a Ziploc bag full of Band-Aids. So when the team's like, hey, I need a Band-Aid, it's right in front. They don't go digging through my bag and
empty everything out. Yes, I have you here. Yeah.
I have a funny story about that too. We were on a call once and one of my teammates was starting to do medical and he's throwing my stuff everywhere. We all have masks on, right? We've gassed this guy. And I look at him dead in his face. He's like the people are throwing tourniquets at me, like they're all being helpful, but it's like, at some point I just kind of got to take over, and deem one person to help me and everybody else go away. Yeah. And this was a learning experience of where I needed to be a chief because this was now my thing. And I needed to be like, you're going to help me and everybody else, go away. And I looked at him dead in his face. And I looked at him and I said, stop yard selling my shit, and I went up to him after. I'm like, dude, I'm really sorry, man. I was like, you were just like, shit was flying everywhere and you were looking for stuff, but I know exactly where everything is. And that again goes back to being prepared. And like I said earlier, those SOPs, knowing what you have, where it is and how to use it, because you need to get right to it. Right. And so it's important to know your own stuff. Let's talk about that guy.
Yeah. Just last thing about this. Yeah. So this is not my favorite. So this is for those that aren't watching, this is basically an ankle worn IFAK, right? And it has basically all the same stuff in it that my belt worn IFAK would have in it.
Right.
It's just, it's on my ankle. And I'll tell you why I have it on, why I bought it, because I started training concealed a lot more. And I wasn't out on the range for hours and hours at a time. I'd go out and get some practice done and I wanted to have something on me. And what I found myself doing was stuffing shit in my pockets. Like I've got a tourniquet hanging out of my pocket here. And like, you don't have a dump pouch on. So if you're moving mags around things were just getting in the way.
It's the curse of the BDUs, right?
Yes.
Like you get used to having BDUs. And you're like, I'm just going to stuff everything in my BDUs.
The next thing you know, it's your pockets are full of shit and you're trying to be mobile. So that's why I bought it. And I have to say, I do like it for that, but obviously it's problematic for reasons as well in terms of accessing it. So maybe you could kind of talk through some of the downsides.
Like anything else, somebody developed it because it's got a purpose. So what I tell people is know the purpose. And if it works for you, it works for you, but don't try to make it something that's not, right? Like for me, the problem with this is I'm a Bay Area kid, right? So I grew up on every kind of music. You can catch me in Jordans or Nikes one day, but the next day I might be wearing cowboy boots. Yeah. This doesn't fit down in my boot and it don't fit over my boot. So it goes out the window, right? The other thing I found is like, if you're wearing shorts, you look like you're on probation or parole and you got an ankle monitor on, right? So you're only going to really wear it like out in public if you got jeans on.
I'm not wearing that shit in public. That's purely range time.
So the thing with that is it gets dirty, right? And stuff starts wearing. So now you're wearing on your cat, right? And you're rubbing on it, especially doing positional shooting, which you all should be, right? And then things start to just wear and tear, like you haven't yet, but like the corners of these chest seals, they'll start to rip and tear. And now you're dealing with equipment that's not ideal.
It's compromised. Yeah.
So these are good for like, if you have like tailored pants, like let's say you're listening and I'm trying to hit the broad audience here. Let's say you're doing executive protection.
Yeah.
And you want to wear something, but you're suit and tie, right? So you're probably concealing a firearm under your jacket, but what do you do for medical? This is an option. If your pants are tailored for it, right? Cause you don't want to print it still cause you stand out. And the whole point is you're not supposed to stand out, but it's hard not to print this giant kit. But if you can get it to work, or doing like all my battle belts and my SWAT belt have the LBX or LBT, that center pouch. I like those. Blue Force makes a center pouch that, you know, you can pull across. It's an insert similar to your LTC. Yep. But that's another good one for executive protection because now it's in your lower back and you can still put it on a dress belt and hopefully your jacket covers it and no one knows it's there.
Good point.
But now it has a downfall again, right? Just like this has a downfall. Those, if you got to sit in a car for hours,
it's
miserable.
Yeah, it's jacking up your lumbar spine.
I won't ever wear one of those on patrol because it's right in my back. But for the team, sure. For my training belt, sure.
Right.
But it has a purpose, right? You don't go out and wear it on patrol.
Yeah. So there's just, I guess the point of it is like there's application for all of it. That's not my favorite. Like if you're out and it's wet, then that thing's getting wet, right? Like if you're in high grass, it's picking up everything as you're going through there.
That was my biggest thing is like, I'm not a big dude. I'm athletic at best. Right. But my ankles, being a skinnier guy, this thing has to be so tight and then it chafes and it rubs around. Yep. And the thing is I found is if you're not comfortable with it, you're not going to wear it. Right. Like if you buy a piece of equipment and it rubs you the wrong way or it irritates you, what do you do with it?
You huck it. Or just sits in the closet.
I ain't going to wear that, but you have it. It has a purpose. So yeah, if it works for you in certain applications, great. Why not?